Hey guys, it's Trent. Wanted to go over a couple of tips and tricks for helping you guys with these stencils. I know that they can be frustrating, and especially some of these little islands can be kind of difficult to both weed and to apply. And Danny Halax did a great job on the application videos. There was just a couple of things that I thought maybe might want to draw a little bit of attention to and throw in a couple of extra tips to maybe make it a little easier for you. Because even as awesome as he is at doing this, and he's done it a few times now, they can still be a little bit frustrating. So first of all, what I'm working with here is this is the older version, so don't worry about the fact that this looks wrong. This is the original. This is one half of a stencil left over that I had from the first run. But the process is going to be the same. When you start weeding these things, Danny said it exactly right. You pull off the brown parts. But one of the things that I found that's the easiest is once you get it started, if you fold it back, it's going to be so hard to tell you how to show you how to do this. Once you get it started, fold it back on itself and pull everything. This is kind of a general rule. When you're removing the brown parts, when you're applying the tape, when you're pulling the tape off, do it at a tight angle. If you start pulling up away from the stencil, you're going to pull up islands with it. You're going to snag things. You're going to stretch things. If you fold it back on itself and pull tightly, and as each new section starts to lift up, you kind of guide it, you'll also be able to see on this end, on this side, once you pull it back tightly against itself, where an island is, and the crease actually helps the island stay down and makes it much easier to grab from this side rather than pulling straight up. Here's an island here. You'll notice if I start pulling straight up, it wants to come with it. Let's see if I can get that any closer. If I start pulling straight up, the island wants to come with it, right here. But if I peel this back, I'm going to go ahead and slice this edge off here. If I fold it back on itself, like this, and I pull, I'm pushing down with my finger as I'm pulling, you can see how it will separate that island, and all I have to do is just push as I'm pulling this back. Folding it back with a tight angle will help these islands expose themselves. Here's another one right here. And see, here's another one right here. And it makes them so much easier to stay down. Okay? So, tip number one, fold it back on itself. Don't pull up. Go sideways across at a 180-degree angle from itself. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just finish weeding this one. And we're going to go on to the next step. Maybe I will speed this up or something here in a minute. So here's a great example of what I was talking about. I accidentally just lifted that one up, and the islands came with it. But when I lay them back down and start by folding it over on itself, you can see it pops the edge of that island out right there, and I can just peel back against itself and it'll stay there. And if I go slowly on this one, there's the edge of that island, it pops itself out, it stays there. Alright, so there's the booster section. Timestamp says 13. I think I talked for a couple of minutes, so you probably took it looking at a good 10 to 15 minutes of weed time for the booster, which is the most complicated one. Now the new versions I'm sure have a little bit more detail, but they're also cut a little better, so probably about the same, maybe a little longer. Regardless, this is all based on your preference and what you feel comfortable with and what you want to do. You could spend an hour doing each one and getting it 100% perfect, or you could spend 20 minutes and get it 99% perfect, and then go back and scratch back any little islands that you miss on the stencils. You know, if you took pictures ahead of time and you accidentally pulled up an island here, then as you're going, after you paint it, get your little toothpick or something and scratch that little spot back in there on your paint after you get done painting it. Alright, so there's the weeded stencil. Now, these are cut in different spots, so this is not going to be exactly the same, but the theory is exactly the same. Let's pretend this was our red line here. That's our guide that we're going to line up with the V2 so that everything gets put in the right spot. I'm just going to mark here a line just to kind of indicate that that's what we're doing here. And then what Danny said was correct. You peel off the rest of the stencil, the backing, the border, and you want to be careful on the edges just in case there's any that get snagged. And what you're left with is a nice neat little piece here. Alright, and now you get your blue tape. Tear you off a piece that you know is going to be big enough. Now, one extra thing that I want to add in addition to what Danny said, which is all correct, it's just this is going to make you have to fight it a little less. When you apply your stencil, just like he did, you want to line it up with the edge. The more you line up, the less you have to cut. So I could just slap it down and then trim it, or I could save myself a little bit of trimming by lining it up with this bottom edge here, this yellow edge against the bottom of my blue tape. I'm going to try to do that. Perfect. Lay it down. Okay. Now, one thing that I would like to stress is if you go ahead and put this down pretty snugly, you don't have to use a credit card or anything, but use your finger and kind of wipe it down just to make sure that it's all there, it's all stuck. And then, as you can see where the stencil still ends. So you can see where your guide is. You can see where your red line is. Use a pen or a pencil to mark that on the tape. It's just the edge of the stencil. I didn't actually have to put the red line there because it's just the end of each stencil. This red line just makes it a little easier to see through the tape. And then to see, once you've got your two ends meet, if there wasn't a red line and the seam is perfect, it's going to be a little hard to see it, but the red line just makes it a little easier to see. All right, so mark it, but don't cut it on this red line. If you're left-handed and you like to put them on starting this way and going around, that's fine. If you're right-handed and you like to start them on this end and go around this way, that's totally fine. That's why I made the lines right there on the edges. But whichever way you want to end on, or the starting edge, I'm sorry, rather, the edge that you want to start on, leave yourself a little tail. So I'm going to cut one edge exactly right. Okay, now this is just demo purposes, so yeah, I should have used a straight edge and lined it up with the ruler, so don't do what I just did here. This is just for demo purposes. But on this one, I'm going to leave a little bit of a tail. Okay, and I'll show you why here in a second. I am going to cut the other edge here so that I have a nice neat stencil all the way across. All right. So now that I'm ready to peel these off, again, the same rule applies. Pull it back on itself. This will help you find anything that's going to stay down and let you catch it before it happens. So far so good, everything looks great. Perfect. All right. So now, again, depending on which hand you use or which direction you want to wrap, you want to leave yourself a tail on the beginning edge. And I'll show you why here in a second. This is where I saw Danny fighting these stencils a little more than he had to. So you pressed it down pretty good onto the tape, so it's got a pretty good snug fit here. What we're going to do is, that's a little extra chunk that I didn't get off. I have I don't have my V2 with me. It's actually at Danny's. He's doing mine for me because he's awesome. So I'm going to use this old Hero version so that I can just pull these back off when I'm done. So let's pretend that our set screw is right here. I think it's, yeah, whatever. Let's pretend the set screw is right here. So I'm left-handed, so I like to go this way and wrap. I guess that would be counterclockwise if you're looking at it from the bottom end. So I'm gonna line it up with the edge, or with the, you know, half on the set screw, and these aren't gonna fit this because it's completely different measurements, but it's pretty close. It's got a little bit of a lip here, a little bit of a lip up here, but we'll just call that good. All right, so I'm going to, like Danny said, do it lightly, start off so that you can get your alignment, because these do flex a little bit, the tape will give a little bit. If you see that it's starting to come off the track a little bit, you can give it a little tight, a slight pull back and have it shift, get you back on track. If it's really off from the get-go, pull it off and start over, but basically you want to start by giving it just a light touch where it's just adhering. Okay, and you want to work your way all the way around. You don't want any folds and you don't want any bubbles, but you don't want to push it down or burnish it just yet. So get it all the way around. All right. So now, of course, you can tell this is not meant for this lightsaber. It's going to be significantly too big, but this kind of helps prove my point. When you get to this edge here, if you were just to stick it down, you're going to have a stencil on top of tape and it's going to be ruined. So, like Danny said, before you lay this down, you want to peel this stuff up. This is where your tail comes in. Right at this point, once you've got it fit, do this one extra step that I don't think Danny covered. Now is when you want to burnish this thing down really snugly onto the metal. So use your thumb, use your fingers, push the impressions through the tape onto it. You should be able to see it. The shapes show through the tape when you push it down good enough. This is going to get that stencil to really stick to the metal more than the tape. Okay, and then when you get back to the edge here, of course you want to stop. You don't want to do the whole thing. But here's where that tail comes in. When you leave yourself a little bit of room, and then you just start with this tail here. Again, that same principle applies. So you don't have stencil. You're not starting off with stencil right off the bat. So lift up your tail and push it down against itself, and then start peeling. And when you peel, it makes it so much easier to see where that stencil starts. See how when you push tightly and pull back, it exposes itself. And you can literally just pump. I'm pushing down, I'm pushing straight down on it, and then I'm peeling to the side with a really tight pressure. And see, there's one that did try to stick up, but all you have to do is back it up, push, and it lays down. So there's not actually any type of lifting up, because that's going to pull your islands with it. If you push down and peel, it causes the islands to stick out first before they start coming up. And this is the worst kind of tape to use, by the way. Use the blue tape. It's a blue brand. I guess it's still 3M, but blue brand painter's tape, specifically for masking and doing baseboards, because it doesn't stick as much. This is way too sticky, but as you can tell here, I'm having no problem with it because I'm applying this kind of technique of, whatever you want to call it, of having a tight angle. I've literally just got my thumb stuck to it, and I'm pushing down and I'm dragging it along the lightsaber. I'm not pulling it. When you do this, that tight fold right there, you see that's a perfect example. We'll push that island down and let it stick out before it tries to come up. And so if I can do it with this horrible tape, it's going to be a piece of cake to do with the good stuff. Anyway, so once you get that started, then of course you're going to lay your other one, and this will line up perfectly on the V2, not on this one because this was not built for this. But then you want to go ahead and finish your stencil off, and then you're just going to peel back slowly against itself. And again, I'm just pushing down and dragging. And when something starts to come up, you can roll it back. But like I said, with the really good blue tape, you're not going to have that issue near as badly as with this really sticky stuff. Oh, that's an island that was part of the sticker. You can see it's brown there. That's not supposed to be there. Another good little tip is to make sure you clean off all of the extra islands before you stick your tape on. See, even with this really horrible tape, it's coming off perfectly. Oh, there's a spot. So it actually came all the way up. I can roll it back, push down, get it to stick, and then roll it again, and there it is. There's a spot right here. Push down. That part doesn't matter because it overlaps, because this stencil is not built for this lightsaber. Anyway, there you go. So that's how you do that. Go slow, take your time, use that angle technique where you fold it back over itself and keep everything tight, and it'll make those things so much easier. Anyway, hope that helps, guys. Let me know if you have any questions. Bye.